is the Light of Truth radio broadcast with Michael Boldea.
All right, welcome to the program, and thank you for joining us. This is the Light of Truth radio broadcast. I am, as always, your humble host, Michael Boldea, and it's good to be with you once again. Today, for the sake of posterity, is January the 29th, the year of our Lord 2026. I don't know whether you thought this month went by too fast or not fast enough, but here we are. By the time we talk again, it would already be February. So tempus fugit, kids, tempus fugit. For those of you unfamiliar with Latin, and I know there may be a couple of you, that means time flies. And you can see it. Even with everything that's going on, even with all the headlines making their way to your, visual core, time still flies. One day precedes another goes by, and here we are, the end of January already. Now, there's quite a few things that I hope to be able to get to, quite a few things that I hope to talk about, because in case you've been living under a rock, in case you are completely unconcerned with where we're headed, what the trajectory is, and are uninterested in identifying who the enemies of this republic are, you'll understand that there is a purpose to the things that are happening. There is a purpose to why they're happening. And it's just, look, if we hadn't seen this all before, if it wasn't a repeat of 2016, if it wasn't a repeat of 2020, then you could give them, points for creativity, at least. But this is the same thing, and their purpose, their desire, their end goal is the same thing. Now, for those of you that don't know what that end goal is, it's to do away with ICE. It's to do away with law enforcement. It's to allow people to do as they will and defraud the government for as much as they want, because somebody's getting a kickback somewhere. And unfortunately, at least for those in the crosshairs, the useful idiots are being used anew, and they're being egged on by individuals who should know better, but likely do know better, decide not to do the right thing and just keep this pressure going. There's things to talk about concerning the gentleman. I believe his name was Pretty, and his previous run-ins with ICE, law enforcement, what have you, because for the last week, all we heard was that this was finally the martyr they were looking for. This was finally the individual they could pin their hopes on. He didn't hold a knife to a pregnant woman's belly. He wasn't hopped up on drugs when the police tried to arrest him. He didn't try to run over an ICE agent. He was just standing there with a camera. Well, he wasn't just standing there with a camera, at least not in the incident that eventually led to the loss of his life. He had a weapon. But he was legally carrying. That's fine. And I'm all for the Second Amendment. I'm all for concealed carry permits. But you have to have a modicum of reason to realize that you are inserting yourself into a highly volatile situation. And perhaps, I don't know, take measures not to escalate. Take measures not to put yourself in a position where you might be permanently deleted. Now, given the backstory of this gentleman, and again, as with the previous one, there is no joy. I'm sad to hear somebody died. Granted, now, hear me out. Apparently, murder rates in these United States have dropped precipitously. Some people are even saying that the murder rates have plummeted by 95%. And I saw a headline by the New York Times that encapsulates everything. It encapsulates the narrative. It encapsulates how facts are being twisted. It encapsulates the willful ignorance of some not to see any positive things about getting murderers and rapists and child molesters off the streets. Because the headline of the New York Times article says thusly, and it's, look, at some point you can't discount the numbers. Murder rates are down significantly, staggeringly, by 90 some odd percent, some people say. And this is the headline of the New York Times article. What's behind the staggering drop in the murder rate? No one knows for sure. Well, there you go. And I read this verbatim. I didn't try to make a funny. I didn't try to inject humor. This is the actual headline. What's behind the staggering drop in the murder rate? No one knows for sure. Well, I have some ideas. I mean, I know correlation is not causation. However, most people, logical people, reasonable people can put 2 and 2 together and come up with 4 because that's the way the maths work. There is a reason that the murder rate is down a staggering amount. And it's not because criminals decided to be nice all of a sudden. It's not because criminals decided not to commit murder all of a sudden. But because those with the propensity to do it, those known to have done so, those belonging to, I don't know, Tren de Aragua, the cool guys with the face tattoos, the MS-13s, the ones that in order for you to get jumped in, you got to kill somebody. Those are being picked up, deported, or kept arrested. Well, what about freedom? No, you don't have the freedom to endanger my child. You don't have the freedom to endanger my wife. You don't have the freedom to murder me. So are you saying you're okay with criminals being taken off the streets? Most assuredly. Indeed. Yes'm, yes'm, yes'm. I am. If you disagree with this, God bless you. But you need to understand that the narrative that is being, spooled out has nothing to do with kindness or empathy or not endangering people. The narrative is now very clear because one Chuck Schumer said, we're going to shut down the government again if we don't defund ICE. Excuse me? Now, again, yes, 2 people have died at the hands of ICE agents. That is an undeniable fact. One of them was a woman trying to run an ICE agent over. We all saw the video. Guy had internal bleeding. The other was a guy that got in a scuffle with ICE agents because he was trying to play Captain Manhood. And if you took the narrative that was first established, if you believed what was first said about this man, this individual, Mr. Preti, then you're like, wow, I don't know how this happened. But see, like we talked about last week, the best thing most of us, if not all of us, can do is just keep our mouth shut for more than 30 seconds to see more facts come out, to see the entire picture rather than just a 10-second clip, and then come to whatever conclusion we come to. So Mr. Preti was a former nurse, not a current nurse. He was fired 3 months ago. Mr. Preti had gone through a divorce. Now, I've heard of individuals, allow me to sip from my not so delicious beverage because my brother's not here. So he couldn't make me a coffee. So I had to go to Hardee's because Hardee's coffee is only $2 compared to everybody else. Anyway, that's not your concern. I know. Who cares, fat man? Keep talking. Let me sip first and then I will. Now, we've all heard the term, and I'm going to change it up a little bit because there are certain words that the interwebs don't like. It's called self-deletion by cop. You can, replace the first word with what it obviously is, but self-deletion by cop is when somebody decides this is the day. This looks like a good day to die. And they go to the extent of either pulling on an officer or running towards them or something, and the cop fearing for his life, or the cop wanting to live, unlike the individual trying to get him to shoot him, pulls and fires. So I don't know what his mental state was, but from the statements that are coming out from his own parents, people he used to work with, the hospital, it seems as though Mr. Pretty wasn't in a very pretty place. He wasn't thinking rainbows and puppies. Couple that with the reality that there is video of Mr. Purdy being very acrimonious, let's call it, to federal officials 2 weeks prior. And I don't know if this was the case where he had his rib broken, but there was at least one other altercation before the one that ended his life, where he was kicking in police vehicles, he was spitting at police, he was yelling, and you could see that he was carrying back then too. They didn't arrest him. They didn't shoot him. They de-escalated the situation. And I don't know if Mr. Purdy went home and goes, well, that didn't work. We'll try again later. I don't know his state of mind, but seeing the pattern and understanding all the other pieces that form the last few months of this man's life, I would not be at all surprised if self-deletion by cop was his intent. What is indisputable, because Lord knows every major outlet tried to say this is a fake video and they had to go, no, it's real, was that he'd had altercations with federal officials in the past. And by the way, those are, well, they're not real cops. No, they're federal officials. Yes, they are. They are federal enforcement agents. Don't listen to the propaganda, because you might find yourself in a heated discussion with somebody that has the authority to arrest you. And if they feel as though their life is threatened, I don't know, ventilate you maybe. So just be smart. I know most of you listening to this are never going to put yourself in a position where you risk getting shot by a cop or an officer. You're going to do like Gino did. You're going to comply. You're going to freeze. You're going to put your hand behind your back. Whatever the situation is, whatever the officer asks, you'll deal with it later. After the situation gets de-escalated and you're no longer in danger of bleeding out of a third nostril, then sure, go to an attorney, go, hey, he manhandled me, he didn't read me my rights, whatever it was. But if you find yourself in a heated situation surrounded by armed individuals, don't fight and struggle and kick and try to reach for things. Just, yep, I surrender. But this narrative of an innocent nurse who all he did was heal people fell apart so fast, it's not even funny, but they still got what they wanted out of it. They got the excuse to say, nope, we're not going to vote on a funding bill until ICE gets dismantled. Chuck Schumer, you have to understand that many of what we deem elected officials despise you. And they're still trying. Well, okay, so it wasn't, you know, I mean, he wasn't innocent, but the big orange man just hates black people. No, there's brown people being arrested too. They're trying to obfuscate from the underlying truth that even the New York Times said, we don't know why murder rates are down. It's a mystery. It seems as though love for our fellow man is sweeping the nations, and murderers aren't murdering anymore. Murderers aren't murdering anymore because they're getting snatched up, they're getting arrested, they're getting deported, they're getting put in jail. I'm sorry, if your desire is not to be a functioning, contributing member of society, but your desire is to view the rest of humanity as prey, if your desire is to inflict violence on the innocent just to get ahead, if your desire is to defraud the government because it's a lot more lucrative than getting a 9-to-5 job, then yes, if you're here illegally, you need to go. I'm sorry, you're an immigrant too. Oh, I know. This is why when I say it to you, there's a little bit of weight behind it, or at least there should be. This is why when I speak to you from a position of an immigrant, you should be more inclined to believe what I tell you than some multi-millionaire half-tard that had one-hit song or one-hit movie 30 years ago that's now a political genius that says, we just need to disband all of government altogether. See, people that live in gated communities that never have to deal with crime shouldn't have an opinion about the things that are happening in these cities, because they are not living through the things that the average citizen is living through. Okay, I live in a relatively safe town. Currently, there's a hunt on for individuals taking pot shots at cars driving by right on the highway that I take my kids to school on. Somebody's just shooting at cars. People are waking up with bullet holes in their doors. So if you have no enforcement of law, these things will only escalate. These things will only grow in number. And so I understand the New York Times is befuddled as to why murder rates are plummeting. But anyone with two brain cells to rub together can kind of understand why murder rates are plummeting. So this was the thing all along. Gino.
Yeah.
Is that you?
I turned it off.
See, this is the level of professionalism that you've come to expect from us. And obviously, Gino does not disappoint. If you think it was me, it wasn't me. I'm just sitting here talking into a microphone. So all the nasty letters, address them to the Gene Bean, all right?
Yeah.
Anywho, they got what they were ultimately after. And I don't think the truth came out early enough to stop another shutdown, because their purpose isn't the safety of the people. Their purpose is power. Their purpose is to try to hamstring this administration until the midterms, hoping that they win the Senate and the House, or one of the two, hoping that they come back to power. And if you listen to some elected officials, you don't have to trust me. Listen to their words. Listen to the fantasies they have in their heads of rounding up anyone that had anything to do with law enforcement, of having them swinging from the gallows. These are the people hoping to come back to power. Their interest is not in preserving the republic. Their interest is not in doing what's best for the average citizen. Their interest is power. Please get that through your head, because there's a lot of, maybe there's a middle of the road. Murder rates are down 94%. I think that's a positive, but that's just me. So, the one thing that most people didn't realize, I think, and it's something that I feel we need to discuss because it's a teachable moment. It doesn't matter what political side you're on. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. You have to understand this one thing above all else. Appeasement never works with the crazies. Once you head down the road of appeasement, eventually, if you have a modicum of sanity, or you say that's a bit much, they'll turn on you. I mean, there's no one closer to insanity than Governor Tim Walz. I mean, that man is walking the fine line as though it was a razor-thin knife. And even he had to go, maybe we should pull back on the crazy just a smidge. Maybe, it's not good for guys with face tattoos to break into federal vehicles and steal their guns. Maybe it's not good for some guy from prisons and corrections, I think it was, getting a brick to the face and being the only one standing guard at a hotel when out of their minds animals were just trying to get in and kill everybody. Maybe that's a bit far.
Yeah.
Guess what happened the next day? They went to Governor Walz's office and they started protesting. Because once you head down the road of appeasement and you don't want to be full crazy, once you go down the road of appeasement and you don't want people stabbing people in the middle of the street in broad daylight without any sort of, accountability, then you're dead to them. And again, these are the useful idiots that Tim Walz himself used to get this far. But at some point, given that Tom Homan came to Minneapolis, and he said something that I think put the fear of God in a lot of elected officials. We're putting together a database. We're seeing who's leaking information about where ICE is, where federal agents are staying. And one of the people that's likely going to end up in shackles, if there is any justice left, is the lieutenant governor of Minneapolis. Tim Walz is number 2. But they thought they could keep this going to deflect from the fraud, but it went too far, and they're realizing we need to claw this back. And that just... that angered the crazies to no end. Because when you try to appease the crazies, they'll always go one step too far, where if you have any sanity left in you, if you don't want to see complete anarchy, you go, maybe we should pull back on this just a smidge. And then they'll turn on you too. Now, I know they tried. Bless their hearts, as they say in Texas. They really tried to change the narrative. The same day that it was announced that Ilhan Omar was being investigated because somehow she's worth $30 million, fortuitously, even serendipitously, she was attacked. Now, again, I don't think these people understand that the internet is forever. I don't think these people understand that if you took a picture with your attacker and it was posted on the interwebs, somebody's going to find it. But this was supposed to shift the narrative. Allow me to sip, please. I think my kids are coming down with something and my throat is itchy. This was supposed to do away with the investigation, but some intrepid sleuth actually came up with pictures of Ilhan Omar and her attacker being buddy-buddy. Now, if you watched the video, there are certain clues that should tell you this thing wasn't properly rehearsed, and that there's a certain way an individual acts when they're blindsided, when they're genuinely attacked by somebody, and when they know it's coming. Look, I'm a decent-sized guy. I have what some might call a masculine body, not from the point of musculature, although I'm sure it's there hiding underneath the fat. But I'm a decent-sized fellow. If somebody came up to me trying to splash me in the face, my first instinct wouldn't be to charge them. It would be to duck, to bob, to weave, to move. Now, if I knew somebody was going to spray me with apple cider vinegar and I needed to make it good and I needed to put on a brave face, then sure, I'd charge him because I knew it wasn't acid. I knew it wasn't bleach. I knew it wasn't something that could blind me forever. It's just apple cider vinegar. Funny thing how that individual, that gentleman that has pictures on the interwebs with none other than the woman he attacked, had a syringe full of apple cider vinegar sitting in the front row, and wouldn't you know it, Ilhan Omar just went straight on the attack as nobody makes me afraid. Look, who was it? The governor of Michigan faked her own kidnapping or attempted kidnapping? Again, this isn't new. If it was new, at least I'd appreciate the originality. The things that are being done, whether as a whole in Minneapolis or by individuals that understand they're going to get caught with their hand in the cookie jar, are laughably obvious. And they were hoping, every news outlet, Ilhan Omar was attacked. He sprayed some apple cider vinegar at her. It was an individual that she knew. And she knew it was coming because that's not how you react when you are really being attacked. I'm sorry. That's just my 2 cents. I know pennies aren't worth a thing anymore. They just round up or round down nowadays. But still, my 2 cents is my 2 cents. So that narrative fell apart. Look, my concern is that one way or the other, they're going to get what they want. They're going to get anarchy. They're going to get lawlessness. They're going to come to some sort of compromise that will defang the individuals that were being entrusted by the federal government to get the criminals off the streets. And if that happens, guess what the narrative is going to be when murder rates spike back up? This administration isn't doing enough. They're murdering our children in the streets and they're just sitting there because there's no way to win with these people other than to stick to the plan, be committed to the cause, and allow all of their narratives to, wash off your back. But politicians are politicians. Their singular desire is to stay in power. So I am not optimistic about the next few days or the next few months, because their whole plan and plot is to disenfranchise enough people where, coupled with the fraud they're planning, it'll swing the other way. And when that happens, I want to hear from all of the, Nancy do-gooders. Oh, we shouldn't be so. Have you seen the videos? People screaming, blowing whistles in their faces, calling them all sort of names, throwing things at them. These are men who are there for a purpose, who have a right to be there by law, who are arresting the worst of the worst. Again, I'm utterly in awe of John Fetterman's logic, doubly so because of his brain damage. The man looks at the numbers and he goes, yeah, no wonder the murder rate's down. 2/3 of the people being arrested are wanted criminals, violent, murderers, thieves, pedophiles, rapists. Not the kind of people you'd want to call neighbor or friend. But the only one making sense is Fetterman. All the others are like, this is our chance. Chuck Schumer rubbing his hands. This is our chance. Oh, the man was an earth and he walked on water. Well, perhaps at some point in his life, but the last few months don't seem to have been nice to him. And there's only so much an individual will take before they snap. He tried once, he failed. He likely tried more than once, but wasn't videoed. That's just the reality of it. Oh, Mike, why do you talk about this stuff? Because it's important for you to realize that this is what these people can do when they don't have power. Imagine what they will do when they do. It's happening in Spain, and right now it's too late for the Spanish people to wake up and realize, we just lost our country. Because the current government is so unpopular, they just fast-tracked the legalization of 500,000 to 1 million people that weren't supposed to be there. They all have a right to vote. And the average Spaniard, the average Spanish citizen, is realizing, we don't have a say in our own nation anymore. We don't have a say in our own government anymore. Look, these people are playing for keeps. This is the thing that so few realize. And there's certain moments of levity in the midst of all this. The bananas and rice girl. I don't know if you saw that, but just look it up. Bananas and rice. And, great. To be fair, if you put enough butter in anything, it'll taste good. But the bananas and rice girl got arrested a couple of days after being the poster child of inclusivity. So, it's coming. It's coming. Whether now or later, it's coming, because eventually they will find the right martyr. Eventually, there will be some accidental discharge or somebody that's quick on the trigger. And I know they shouldn't be. They should shoot at tires and try to, kneecap people. All from individuals that never went through any sort of training. Read the training manuals. Center mass, double tap. That's what they're trained to do. So if you don't want to feel what it's like breathing through one lung, stay home. Let them do their job. And what was it? It was last week, wasn't it? And this is why the propagandists in the media are so dangerous. Because they will pretend ignorance when the numbers are staring them in the face. why, I wonder, is the murder rate dropping? Oh, it's a mystery. But then there was a 5-year-old kid, also in Minneapolis, whose dad ran away from ICE officers and abandoned him. And the officers took the kid, took him to McDonald's, bought him a meal, and kept him warm. The narrative from the mainstream media was ICE arresting 5-year-olds. You know what? At the risk of having you write me again and, oh, we shouldn't hate, you don't hate the media enough. Understand it's an expression, but you don't hate the media enough. Because they're in concert with the individuals that want to, what was it Barack Hussein Obama said? Fundamentally transform these United States of America. Indeed. I don't know how many people will be as excited when the transformation is finally complete. That's the thing that is still a mystery to me. Now, in case you thought all we were going to talk about is Minneapolis, rice and bananas, or bananas and rice, and Ilhan Omar being squirted with apple cider vinegar, German lawmakers on Thursday, which is coincidentally today, will vote on new legislation requiring basic utilities and other critical infrastructure bolster their respective security to reduce vulnerabilities to terrorism, accidents, and other emergencies. The bill's vote comes amid growing tensions with Russia stoking fears of sabotage, attacks, and other national security threats. So the powers that be are still planning for an all-out war. They're still planning for this thing to continue dragging on, to continue to escalate, even though by this summer, perhaps this fall at the latest, over 2 million deaths will have been contributed to this Ukraine-Russia debacle. In a Wednesday press release, the German Bundestag detailed that the draft legislation known as the Kritis Umbrella Law was passed by the legislative body's Internal Affairs Committee with the vote of the CDU, CSU, and SPD. There's no Western government that doesn't have at least 70 to 80% bloat as far as government employees are concerned. All of these different coalitions and factions and what have you, utterly useless. The legislation aims to establish and implement uniform minimum requirements for the physical protection of critical infrastructure facilities in Germany. The Bundestag explained that the law would require operators of critical facilities to take appropriate and proportionate measures to protect their facilities, meaning that they're probably going to increase taxes on the German people because, nothing's free in life. So they're not giving up. I know there was like this overwhelming desire to be celebratory and think that, well, they lost. I guess we'll see him in 4 years. Well, I guess the whole globalism thing was put on the back burner and now they're giving up. No. These individuals have a plan and a purpose. And any setback only encourages them to press harder. We're not. I mean, if anything, we're more in the woods than we were before. Because I've heard the narrative, well, we're out of the woods. Oh, kids, we're not out of the woods. We're deeper in them. And the more these things play out, and the more you see the undermining of one's own government by elected officials, the more you see the average citizen being disenfranchised, asked to pay more in taxes without getting anything in return, the more you see fraud and criminality being sheltered, protected, and continued by those who are supposed to weed it out, the easier it will be for this nation to turn on itself. The easier it will be for civil unrest to metastasize and grow and extend. And when it happens, just remember who was responsible for all of this. Because it wasn't people trying to enforce the law. It wasn't people trying to get murderers off the streets. It wasn't people trying to get rapists off the streets. It was those whose hunger for power overshadowed everything else, including common decency. This is not new. This will not end. Perhaps, I don't know, maybe Tim Walz has been brought to heel. But if it starts to cool down in Minneapolis or in Minnesota, it'll spike back up somewhere else because they can't have the truth coming out. They cannot have the average citizen, whether they're an immigrant that came here and works hard and pays their taxes and sees what's happening, or somebody that's native born. They cannot have the voter base knowing the full truth of what is happening, knowing the full truth of just how much of their taxpayer dollars have gone to places unknown. So this isn't the end. There may be a lull in it, but as far as this being it, this being the end, it's not. Now, there is an article by somebody that at least has an honest take on the situation. Murder rates plummeted last year, yet the media refused to give credit. I can hear you typing, Gino.
Oh, sorry.
Mute your mic, buddy.
Yep.
All right. Well, see, there you go. That's 2. I don't know. Maybe do a vote. How many strikes do we give Gino? He's up to 2 on one program. Violent crime plummeted around the country this year, but the legacy media refused to acknowledge that it has anything to do with the return of the big orange man. According to a report by the Council on Criminal Justice, over the past year, the murder rate has dropped to its lowest level since 1900. I'm going to repeat that after taking a sip of coffee because it's worth repeating. The murder rate has dropped to its lowest level since 1900. Now, I'm no math whiz. I'm no genius when it comes to mathematics. But that's 126 years. Other crimes dropped across 11 of 13 categories in the report. The study also noted that while FBI crime statistics won't become available until later this year, there is a strong possibility that 2025 could mark the largest single-year percentage drop in the homicide rate on record. Boo! I know, if you're a funeral director or you run a funeral home, this is not good news. But that's okay. Old people are still dying of natural causes. So don't be overly depressed. While crime was beginning to fall in 2024, the drop occurred most dramatically in the past year. Interesting timing, isn't it, kids? As most Americans outside the newsrooms of our most elite legacy media publications almost certainly know, crime spiked dramatically in 2020, immediately following the George Floyd riots. I know, this is what the pretty nice riots now. This coincided with a nationwide push by the left to obliterate traditional policing in the name of anti-racism and social justice. Anything but enforcement of law. Anything but law itself. Because the end goal of these people, by these people I mean the communists, the socialists, the anarchists, the face tattoos and the septum rings and the pink hair. The end result of what they desire cannot come about in a law-abiding society. If the law is equally applied, you can't have anarchy and chaos. If the law is equally applied, look, if Mr. Purdy would have gotten arrested the first time he tussled with ICE agents, he may still be alive. That's just the reality of it. But they turn a blind eye. Oh, let him go. Apply the law. Period. If I walk up on a police officer and I'm fidgeting with my pocket and I'm trying to pull something out and he says freeze, and I'm not looking to self-delete on that particular day, then I freeze like I'm told to do. We discussed this, but it bears repeating. Every law enforcement agent, officer, whether federal or local, has as much a right to get back home to his wife and kids as you or I or anyone else does. Period. Just because they're wearing a badge, it doesn't mean people can throw bricks at their heads, try to run them over with cars, or stand there smiling while they're being shot at. So let's please. Because the whole idea of suicidal empathy has been ratcheted up to a place that it's not just unhealthy. It's unsustainable. If you want to live. To the shock of nobody, at least nobody with common sense, crime immediately spiked and stayed high for years until it finally began slowing down. Now it's going down faster than ever before. That's amazing and well worth celebrating, the writer of this article says. But don't think that the media is going to give any credit to this administration. And he quotes the New York Times piece headline because it's worth quoting. This is how despicable these individuals are. Their hatred for one man is blinding them to the reality that we've had less murders than in the 1900s. In these United States of America. This line from a New York Times piece on the crime drop sums up so much about the state of politics in recent years. Experts say there is little to justify any claim that President Trump is responsible for last year's drop in crime. Who are these experts exactly? Is it the lady that is taking her kid to, treatment and scheduling their surgery? Because, Bobby was born a boy, but I've always wanted a daughter, so I've been putting Bobby in dresses since he was 4. And now finally, He's realized his true identity. Look, if you trust the experts, you're already lost. The experts have been telling us that the way to stay healthy was what? To eat Kellogg's cereal by the bucketful every morning. Wash it down with some sugar water or some chocolate milk. And those of us that were at least reasonably thinking individuals go, that doesn't sound right. I mean, if since the dawn of creation, our ancestors were hunter-gatherers and meat was the primary source of their sustenance, and they seemed to be, muscular and well-defined, maybe they knew something that the Kellogg's brand doesn't want you to know. I know. Back in the 50s, doctors were recommending cigarettes. I know that some of you weren't alive back then. I wasn't either, but I've seen the commercials. 60s, 70s, 50s. Doctors, 9 out of 10 doctors recommend Camel Unfiltered. Wow. Well, if it's doctor recommended. So again, there's a fine line between believing everything and not believing anything. Use your common sense, use your reason, use your logic. I understand that the people trying to establish a certain narrative despise you, despise your way of life. At least if you live out on a farm somewhere, you live in a small town where you know the person selling you your apples and you say hi every morning. In order for anarchists to get what they want, there must be anarchy. What happened last year with the decline in crime and the decline in murders goes against their agenda. This is why they're angry. And among them, there are elected officials that have been getting kickbacks since Lord knows when, that think if they can just fan the flames of violence for long enough, people won't remember that one state was defrauded to the tune of $10 billion or something. Just wait till they get into California. I'm telling you, New York, oh my. Minnesota will be a best case scenario study compared to some of these states. And this is what they're trying to avoid. The fact that it makes you as an American citizen less safe, the fact that it makes you as an American citizen less able to afford rent, they don't care. They already got theirs. They just want to be out of prison long enough to spend it. So again, I know I'm sounding cynical and I know we spent the day on this, but hey, if it makes you feel any better, go have some bananas and rice. Make sure you add a lot of butter. She didn't say anything about honey or sugar, but if you're going to have bananas and rice, I recommend some honey on top. Just saying. If you want to experience Somali culture, apparently the height of Somali culture is bananas and rice. If you haven't seen the video, go watch the video. Some of you are sitting there scratching your heads going, is he having an aneurysm? Has he lost his mind? No, it was just that hilarious. And then she got arrested, which, icing on the cake, if you will. But we were asked to keep these a little shorter so that they'd fit into the hour of the radio stations that are currently airing this program. Don't know why they do it. I guess, they need to fill time because this particular week there isn't much that we discussed that was groundbreaking. But I think it was necessary in order for us to understand the situation as it sits, to understand that there are individuals that are not well-meaning. There are individuals that don't desire peace. There are individuals that want chaos, that want destruction, that want anarchy, because in the back of their mind, they hope that they will rise from the ashes holding power. And it doesn't matter to them how many people get hurt in the meantime. It doesn't matter to them how many people lose their lives or livelihoods or anything else, as long as they hold power. It matters not if I rule over a heap of ashes, as long as I am the one ruling. And that is a scary mindset, especially if it's from politicians or people that the average citizen gave power to. So keep that in the back of your mind. Keep walking with Jesus, because that's the only hope that we have. I know I said I'd keep it shorter, but here we are, almost done. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for your prayers. The sun's out in Wisconsin, still in the negatives, but still, it's nice to feel the sun on your face. So I'm going to go do that. I'm going to go and put on a big old coat and get the sun on my face just a smidge. Thank you guys again. We'll see you again next week. Gino, I think you've got 2 minutes to apologize to the people for the lack of professionalism, and then whatever else you want. God bless. We'll see you later.
Well, I do apologize. Actually, I didn't know my little keystrokes were going through the mic, but anyways, civil war is pretty well inevitable. That's what I want to say. Pretty much listening to the whole show that Mike has. I'm only 10 feet away, but Jeremiah 51, 8-15 talks about caterpillars, locusts, people that came into the country, around 11 million under Biden's reign. And they were not, most of them, very good people. Prisons were unloaded in South America and other countries, unloaded, people brought here. So you're really seeing the seeds of the civil unrest, and they are mentioning civil war in the news. Probably 4 or 5 years ago, you never heard that word in America. In fact, in 1988, when Dimitri and Mike were speaking in Wisconsin, most people thought it was a far-fetched fantasy that we'd have a civil war, because I had to deal with a lot of, after they left Wisconsin, I got the week or two of dealing with people calling me and trying to refute that could happen. But that is going to happen. And it's the seeds of it. You can look at what's going on. This cancer is going to spread. It is spreading, especially when you have Muslims in leadership in New York, and you Islamic mayor, Muslim mayor, and Virginia, all the crazy stuff going there. The whole Muslim community they're trying to build in Texas. And you got Minneapolis next door to Wisconsin. We get the fallout of their stupid craziness. So they do like our cheese, I'll say that much. But they're just, it's America imploding. And what will precipitate the real full-out civil war? Well, I've asked Dimitri that a few times, and everything happening now is precipitating it. The whole illegal immigration thing is precipitating it. The whole ICE and Border Patrol are bad guys. So you have American indicting American. And then you had the whole thing attacking police. That whole thing, anti-blue, though they said they backed the blue under COVID. After COVID, they tried to destroy the blue and take the funding away. So you have all the seeds of it, and only God's holding it back. But when God says that's enough for Babylon, it's going to come down like a flood. So serve the Lord with all your heart. Really be about the harvest field. Keep your eyes on Jesus, because this thing is definitely going to unwind soon down the road. It's kind of like a house of cards. Just takes one certain card to pull out, and the whole thing crashes down. Pretty much where America's heading. So thank you for listening to the Light of Truth broadcast.
Thank you for listening to today's broadcast, The Light of Truth with Michael Boldea. If you would like to order a copy of today's broadcast, please visit our website at handofhelp.com. The If you have questions about our ministry, you can email us at handofhelpoffice@aol.com or simply call us at 920-206-9910. God bless you.